One evening at Shelter 17, Olaf is getting ready to go home. Just as he was about to leave, he decided to go to McLeish's office and ask for his Christmas bonus. Olaf said, "McLeish, I'm ready to leave now." McLeish said, "Olaf, how many times do I have to tell you not to barge in through my door?" Olaf said, not sure how many. Anyway, I was hoping if I could ask for my Christmas bonus." McLeish said, "And why should I give you any Christmas bonus?" Olaf said, "Well, all bosses give Christmas bonuses to their employees before they go home to their family." McLeish said, "Well, employees don't start coming in and start whining about getting their bonus." Olaf said, "Aw, come on, McLeish, have a heart." McLeish said, "Look, Olaf, I'm the boss and I get to decide whether you get a bonus or not." Olaf said, "But I need a bonus to feed my family." McLeish said, "Tell you what, I'll give you the rest of the weekend off, but when you get back to work on Monday, you must be in good shape. Understand?" Olaf sighed and said, "Fine, see you later." So Olaf left the office feeling sad. He looked up at the moon and thinking about why McLeish wouldn't give him some Christmas bonus. Why can't I have some credit? I only asked for one thing, and that's my Christmas bonus. McLeish, why can't you just when can I have my bonus to feed my family? Deep down, maybe I knew that McLeish is a selfish old fool. I worked at the pound for several years. Without my bonus, I have my fears. Oh, why, McLeish? Oh, why, McLeish? Yes, oh, why, McLeish?" So McLeish went to his car and drove back home to his family. The pound puppies were watching Olaf, noticing that he didn't get his Christmas bonus. Cookie said, "Geez, poor guy." Squirt said, "Yeah, he didn't get his Christmas bonus from McLeish." Niblet said, "I should call him Baldy McNosehair." Lucky said, "It seems like Olaf's life is a little different than what we see every day." Cookie said, "What do you mean?" And Lucky said, "Well, he has a family to take care of, but McLeish doesn't seem to care about Christmas or Olaf." Strudel said, "It seems to me that Olaf is having a hard time taking care of his family because of McLeish." Lucky said, "You're right. Come on, let's go follow Olaf." So the pound puppies left the pound and went to catch up to Olaf into his house. As they got to Olaf's house, they went to the window and noticed that Olaf's wife Gertrude and his two children, Ruby and Leo, are sitting at the fireplace. The pups realized that Olaf's family is poor and they didn't have so much money. Leo is feeling very sick and he got an injury. When Olaf entered the house, Gertrude came and said, "Oh, Olaf, honey, I'm so glad you came." Olaf said, "Hello, my dear. Sorry about the Christmas bonus. My boss kind of forgot about it." Gertrude said, "Oh, Olaf, it's okay. At least we're all together, and that's what matters." Soon, Leo came up coughing and said, "Dad, will I ever get better soon?" Olaf said, "Oh, don't worry, my boy. Of course you'll get better. But because I don't have enough money, I'm afraid we can't afford to take Leo to the hospital." Gertrude said, "It's okay, Olaf. We'll find a way to get some money." Leo said, "And Dad, for my Christmas list, I would love to have a puppy." Olaf said, "Oh, Leo, I know you want to have your very own puppy, but we just don't have any puppy at the pound. Even if I do find you one, McLeish wouldn't let me keep it." Leo sighed, coughed, and said, "Okay." Back outside, the pound puppies overheard what was going on inside. Squirt said, "Wow, poor kid." Lucky said, "All he ever wanted is a puppy." Cookie said, "Yeah, I kind of feel sorry for him." Lucky said, "It looks like that McLeish doesn't even know that Olaf's family is poor and hungry, even when one boy wanted a puppy." Niblet said, "But what are we supposed to do?" Lucky said, maybe we could show McLeish what Christmas is really all about." Cookie said, "And how are we supposed to do that?" Lucky said, "We can pull a prank on McLeish and change his attitude from going from mean to nice." Squirt said, "But that's impossible." Strudel said, "Actually, Squirt, it is possible. I can invent something that'll allow us to enter McLeish's dream." Lucky said, "Okay, let's go to the pound and get everything ready." The pups nodded and they went back to the pound. As they got back, Strudel invented something that allowed the others to enter into McLeish's dream. The other pups waited for her to finish for hours. Soon she was done. Strudel said, "Okay, pups, I have finished. Behold, the dream entered 3,000. The pups were shocked and surprised. Lucky said, "What does it do?" Strudel said, "It can enter into anybody's dreams, and we can even control or make the dream ourselves." Niblet said, "Oh, I know. Let's make a dream about bacons." Squirt said, "Niblet, we're here to enter McLeish's dream to change his ways, not make bacons." Niblet said, "Aw, man." Lucky said, "Wait, Strudel, what about the downside?" Strudel said, "Well, the machine can only last the entire night, so we only have one shot in this." Lucky said, "Okay, I think we can handle it." Cookie said, "But we still have two problems. One, we have to talk to McLeish, and two, we gotta find a puppy for Leo." Lucky said, "I think McLeish will think that he's in a dream, so we won't get suspected when he wakes up. As for the puppy, Strudel, fire up the KFD and see what pup shows up for Leo." Strudel said, "Sure, Lucky." So Lucky turned on the FKD and began searching the perfect pup for Leo. Soon she found the perfect pup. Strudel said, "Okay, I found the pup. His name is Harry. Basically, we don't know where he lives, but I can send someone to post flyers and ask him to come down here." Lucky said, "Great, but if we're going to be teaching McLeish a lesson, we need someone to find Harry for us." Squirt said, "Maybe Rebound and her friends might help." Lucky said, "Good idea, Squirt." Lucky grabbed his pup bag, called the Super Secret Pup Club to the tunnel. Rebound, Cupcake, and Patches said, "Lucky needs us." The three began running to the tunnel. As they were running, Patches slipped on the banana peel and fumbled into Rebound and Cupcake, causing them all to fall into the tunnel. Patches said, "Whoops, I'm okay." Cupcake and Rebound giggled and they all met up with Lucky. Patches said, "Super Secret Pup Club, ready for action, Lucky sir." Lucky said, "Thank you, pups, for getting here. Now I got a secret mission for you three to do. I want you three to find this pup named Harry and bring him back in here." Rebound said, "Oh, he's so cute." Patches said, "Wait, why do you need him here?" Lucky said, "A person named Leo needs to have a puppy, and that's why we used the FKD to search for it." Cookie said, "We'll be doing some other sort of business, so we won't be able to find Harry in time." And Patches said, "Don't worry, we'll find Harry for you." Cupcake said, "Yeah." Patches, Rebound, and Cupcake said, "Super Secret Pup Club, go!" So the three went out to find Harry. Lucky said, "Okay, so now that they're looking for Harry, let's start teaching McLeish some lessons." Strudel said, "I set the satellite so that right before he enters his home, he would be in his dream. When he wakes up, he'll be in his bed." Lucky said, "Right, so let's go, dogs, go." So they all got right to work. Meanwhile, McLeish is in his car and was just about to drive home. As he got out of his car, he heard noises. He turned around to see who it is. No one was there, so McLeish walked to his house. As he got towards the front porch, the noise came back and it was chanting his name. Ghost Squirt said, "Leonard! Leonard!" McLeish said, "Huh? Who's there?" It was silence. The noise didn't respond to him. McLeish rolled his eyes and went to his room. As he was getting ready to open the door, it was locked. McLeish said, "Oh, great, I left the key in the house. Oh, well, I guess I'll climb in through the window." So McLeish climbed out the window to his bedroom. As he got in, the noise came back again and chanted his name again as well. Ghost Squirt said, "Leonard! Leonard!" McLeish said, "All right, who is it? Come on, stop hiding from me." Ghost Squirt said, "Leonard, look at your bed." McLeish said, "What about my bed?" As McLeish looked at his bed, he noticed a dog as a ghost there. He is wearing shackles around his legs and a noose around his neck. Ghost Squirt said, "Hello, Leonard McLeish. I am here to tell you something really important." McLeish said, "What the? A talking ghost who is a dog? That seems strange." Ghost Squirt said, "Oh, but it isn't Leonard McLeish. I am here to tell you that you have done very bad things during your life." McLeish said, "What are you talking about? I never did any bad things in my life." Ghost Squirt said, "Oh, but you have. That's why I have these shackles and a noose." McLeish said, "That doesn't surprise me." Ghost Squirt said, "Anyway, you're going to be visited by 3 ghosts, and they will show you the errors of your way. McLeach said, "Oh great, more dogs. The last thing I need is a bunch of slobbery mutts." Ghost Squirt said, "Oh really?" Ghost Squirt then disappeared. McLeach said, "Hey, where did that ghost dog go?" McLeach searched the room and realized that the ghost had left. McLeach groaned and said, "Ghost dogs, I don't believe what they say about my errors. I'll just pretend it didn't happen." McLeish yawned and was ready to go to sleep. As he was just about to go to sleep, there was a knock on the door. McLeish said, "What the? Who's there?" McLeish got up and went to see who was at the door. When he opened it, no one was there. McLeish said, "Huh?" Pastrudel said, "McLeish." McLeish said, "Huh? Who said that?" Pastrudel said, "Turned around." McLeish turned around and saw another dog as a ghost. McLeish said, "Who are you?" Pastrudel said, "Fear not, Leonard McLeish. I am the ghost of Christmas past." McLeish said, "The ghost of Christmas past? I bet you're going to show me something about my past, right?" The Pastrudel said, "That is correct, and I'm here to take you on a journey to your worst past of Christmas ever." McLeish said, "Yeah, right. It's worse every year. How's it different?" Pastrudel said, "Take my paw and I'll show you." McLeish grabbed Pastrudel's paw and she took him back in time when he was a young boy. He lives in Green Hill Zone and his house was some sort of mansion. McLeish said, "Hey, I know this place. This is where I was born." Pastrudel said, "That is correct, Leonard McLeish, and if you look closely, you will find yourself as a young child." McLeish looked around and saw himself as a young boy who was in the house opening a Christmas present. McLeish said, "Oh boy, a present! I wonder if it's a chaos. I wish it was a chaos emerald." When McLeish opened it, it was not a chaos emerald. It was some broken rock candies. McLeish said, What kind of present is this?" Agatha said, "Oh, I'm sorry, young Leonard, but when I went to the store, the clerk told me that a bunch of dogs ate a bunch of chaos emeralds, and I'm afraid they don't sell them anymore." McLeish said, "But I want a chaos emerald. Grr, curse those snooty muds." McLeish said, "Wow, I was totally grumpy when I was young." Pastrudel said, "Yes, you were. This was basically your first step to hating all dogs, isn't it?" McLeish said, "Well, dogs are the one thing that keep me from getting what I want. They were also the one that made me be the dog catcher I am today." Pastrudel said, "And that will take us to there." Pastrudel took McLeish to years later, when young McLeish was at Caroline High School. McLeish said, "Hey, I know this place. This is the school I went." Pastrudel said, "Correct. This is your high school, and what you are about to see is how you first became a high school dropout." McLeish and Pastrudel watched past McLeish going to high school. He was an F-level student. The only way he could pass the class is that he wrote an essay about what he learned about the school year. When he entered the class, the teacher asked him to turn in his paper. When McLeish searched through his backpack, he noticed that an essay paper is torn apart. He gasped and realized that his dog probably ripped his homework. He can't rewrite it, so he told the teacher that his dog ate his essay. The teacher didn't accept it, and he gave Leonard McLeish an F on his final. He turned his head and started crying. Soon he dropped out of high school and never returned. McLeish said, "That is how I really hate dogs." Pastrudel said, "Is it possible that the dog was responsible for your action as a dog catcher?" McLeish said, "Yes, that dog ruined my life. You see, dogs should be loyal, dogs should be sweet, but then back to the past, they're hyper and slumbery. They ate the chaos emerald and my essay. That's the reason for what I am today." Pastrudel said, "Leonard McLeish, is it true that some dogs are like that? But it isn't what you did." McLeish said, "What do you mean?" Pastrudel said, "Well, you're having a bad life because a dog is kind of like you making Olaf's life bad as well." McLeish said, "So you're calling me a dog?" Pastrudel said, "No, what I'm saying is that you shouldn't let your anger get in the best of anything. If you do, you'll regret it." McLeish said, "Yeah, I guess so." Soon, Pastrudel disappeared and McLeish fell out of limbo and ended up in his bed. McLeish groaned and said, "What happened? Was it just a dream?" McLeish looked around and noticed that the ghost of Christmas past is gone. McLeish sighed and said, I guess it was just a dream. Oh well. As McLeish was just about to go back to sleep, he had heard some howling sounds. McLeish said, Huh? What was that? The howling sound just got louder and louder, and it was coming from the kitchen. He rushed down the stairs, and when he entered the kitchen, he saw another ghost eating from the fridge. McLeish said, Hey, what are you doing? President Niblet said, Oh, hello, I'm the ghost of Christmas present. McLeish said, Yeah, and you're eating all of my Krabby Patties. President Niblet said, Whoops, sorry, I was supposed to do something important. McLeish said, Let me guess, you want to show me about the present time. President Niblet said, Yes, let's get started, shall we? President Niblet grabbed McLeish and put him on his back and took him to Olaf's house. McLeish said, Hey, this is Olaf's house. What are we doing here? President Niblet said, I'm here to show you about what Olaf's family was like, and you didn't give Olaf some Christmas bonus. McLeish said, Oh, come on, it can't be that bad. President Niblet said, Oh, really? Take a look. McLeish took a look inside and sees Gertrude giving a present to Olaf. Gertrude said, Here you go, Olaf. Merry Christmas. Olaf said, Oh, thanks, honey. When Olaf opened the present, he got an extreme gear. Olaf said, Wow, an extreme gear. Gertrude said, Yeah, it'll get you to work faster. Olaf said, Yes, but I'm afraid we can't afford it since my boss McLeish didn't give me any Christmas bonus. Gertrude said, Oh, it's okay, honey. I'll find us a way to pay for the extreme gear. Olaf said, I made you a card. Gertrude opened the card, and it was a picture of her and Olaf kissing each other. She smiled and said, Oh, Olaf, this is so wonderful. Olaf said, Yeah, sorry about the boring gift. Gertrude said, Oh, I'm sure your gift was nice. Olaf said, Yeah, I guess. McLeish said, Ha, so you see, gifts are better to be handmade than going to the store. President Niblet said, Oh, really? That's what you think? Niblet said, You got any better ideas? President Niblet said, Take a closer look. McLeish looked again and saw Leo limping. He was in a cast. McLeish said, Why is Leo limping, by the way? President Niblet said, Well, he was battling the junkyard dogs. He hurt himself and had to go through an operation. If Olaf had the money to pay for it. McLeish said, Wait, I thought he was sick. President Niblet said, He is. He got the flu as well. Because he didn't pay Olaf, they would not have money to pay for the operation. McLeish said, Oh, no. President Niblet said, And I think you made a wrong choice, McLeish. If you keep doing this, bad things will happen, and bad things will happen to Leo as well. McLeish said, So what's going to happen to Leo? Just before McLeish could get an answer, President Niblet disappeared. McLeish opened his eyes and said, Huh? Ghost of Christmas present? What's going to happen to him? Soon the fog came in. As McLeish looked around, he saw another dog in a black robe with Lucky on the top and Cookie on the bottom. McLeish said, Are you the ghost of Christmas future? Lucky said, Yes, take my paw. McLeish grabbed Lucky's paw and took him to the elephant graveyard. McLeish said, Whoa, what are we doing here at the elephant graveyard? Lucky said, Look. Lucky pointed at Olaf and his family looking at a certain grave. McLeish's eyes wide open and said, Oh no, did someone die? Lucky said, What have you noticed? McLeish thought for a moment and guessed, No, is this where Leo would be at? Lucky nodded. Cookie whispered to Lucky and said, Lucky, can you speed it up, please? It's almost morning. Lucky said, Oh, right. Anyway, this is your feature, Leonard McLeish, and there's one more thing I gotta show you. What's that? Lucky pointed to the tree and McLeish saw himself being hanged. Leonard McLeish gasped and said, Heavy Cabeza! How did I end up dead? Lucky said, Well, you see, I see a cold wind blowing through. I see days neither fun nor free. I see a future caused by you. I see a path not meant to be. The future you will see is tragic, and the people turned against you, and the dark time the pound has ended. It will shoot down for you to lose, and you'll lose your job forever, and die for much worser. Because of you, Leonard McLeish, now the future is a cold nightmare. No, McLeish said, no, this has got to be a mistake. Lucky said, this was never a mistake. Because of your actions, your future turned against you, and you will never be able to fix it. McLeish said, no, I can't have this future. Not like this. Please, Spirit, I want to fix this. Please, please. Soon, McLeish woke up from his nightmare screaming. He looked around and noticed that he was back in his room. He went to the window and asked someone about what day is today. McLeish said, hey, you there! What day is it? It's Christmas Eve! McLeish said, heavy cabeza! I think I can make this right! So McLeish got dressed and went to the pound. Meanwhile, Lucky and the others are waiting for McLeish to arrive with Harry. Squirt said, so, Lucky, are you sure this is gonna work? Cookie said, yeah, I'm not sure McLeish is gonna change. Lucky said, oh, he'll change, just give him time. Harry said, so am I gonna be adopted to Leonard McLeish or Leo? Strudel said, yours is gonna be Leo. We just need to wait for McLeish to arrive to take you. Harry said, wow, I can't wait. Neville said, hey, Lucky, look, McLeish is here. Lucky said, ah, he made it. Now just before you go, Harry. Lucky gave Harry a tag that said, once a pound puppy, always a pound puppy. Harry said, thanks, Lucky. As McLeish parked in his car, he quickly went to the kennel to find the puppy for Leo. Soon he saw one who turned out to be Harry, so he picked him up and took him to Olaf's house. Meanwhile, Olaf and his family are setting up some Christmas dinner. As they were setting them up, there was a knock on the door. Olaf went to the door and opened it. He saw McLeish and said, oh, hey McLeish, am I in trouble? McLeish said, no, Olaf, I just want to wish you a Merry Christmas. Olaf said, you do? McLeish said, yes, and I even have a puppy for you to give to someone. And Harry barked. Olaf said, aw, he's so cute. Leo, come over here. Leo said, what is it, Dad? Olaf said, McLeish got you this cute little puppy. Leo said, wow, he's so cool. I love it, and thank you, McLeish. McLeish said, you're welcome, Leo. Oh, and one more thing, Olaf. McLeish gave Olaf $100 check. Olaf said, wow, thanks, McLeish. McLeish said, you're welcome. Olaf said, would you like to stay in for dinner? McLeish said, of course. So everyone went to the dining room and enjoyed their Christmas dinner. The end.